They planned to humiliate him. They assumed she wouldn't notice. But the single dad walked into that blind date with more dignity than they ever expected. Ethan Kahn had never been the kind of man who belonged in a fancy restaurant. His life didn't allow luxuries. Between fixing broken pipes all day and tucking his daughter into bed at night, he didn't have time for glittering chandeliers or thick menus with prices that made his heart stutter. But tonight, he stood under a golden sign outside La Flamme, tugging at the collar of his only good shirt, unaware that he was walking straight into a setup. It started earlier that week at the construction site where he worked as the on-call handyman. The guys had been joking around, tossing paint caps and teasing each other. Ethan, ever the quiet one, became an easy target. He didn't mind most days. He was used to being that guy, the single dad with tired eyes and worn-out shoes, the one who always brought leftovers instead of ordering food. But then one of them, Ray, had smirked and said, "Hey, Ethan, how about a blind date? It's time you get a life." The laughter that followed had felt wrong. But Ethan, being Ethan, simply smiled and shrugged. He didn't know they had already planned everything. He didn't know they wanted entertainment. And he certainly didn't know the girl they chose as his date was completely unaware of the prank. He stepped inside the restaurant, hands shoved in his pockets. He wasn't nervous because he expected love. Those days of romantic dreams were long gone. He was nervous because this place smelled expensive, and he felt like a stain in a sea of silk and perfume. The hostess guided him to a table near the windows, lit with a small candle that flickered against the glass. That was when Ethan noticed the booth. 4 of his coworkers sat there, pretending to look at menus, but clearly looking at him. One held his phone low, camera already recording. Their smirks told him everything. Something wasn't right. His stomach twisted. Had he walked into a joke? He forced himself to sit anyway. Maybe he was overthinking. Maybe tonight could still surprise him. And then the door opened. She entered quietly, almost floating. A young woman in a teal dress that hugged her frame delicately, her dark hair pulled behind her ears. And there, shining under the soft lights, were her hearing aids. They glimmered like tiny crystals. She paused inside the doorway, checking her phone. Slowly, she read a message someone had sent her. Her expression wavered. Confusion, hesitation, then determination. She walked toward him. His coworkers sat up straighter, their phones ready. Ethan rose at once, because even if this was a joke, she wasn't. And he refused to treat her like the punchline. "Hi," he said gently. "I'm Ethan." She didn't respond with sound. Instead, she offered a small smile and took out a notepad from her purse. She scribbled quickly and slid it toward him. "I'm Lena. Nice to meet you." Her handwriting was neat, careful. Ethan read it, his heart softening when he looked back at her. She seemed unsure, like she expected him to frown or react badly. Like she had experienced this before. And Ethan noticed the details others would overlook. The way her eyes studied his lips, the way she tilted her head to catch small vibrations, the way her shoulders tensed as if bracing for embarrassment. She wasn't here to play along with a joke. She didn't know. Just like him. From the corner booth came muffled snickers. Ethan inhaled slowly, steadying himself. Then he did something that caused Lena's eyes to widen in disbelief. He tapped the table gently to catch her attention, waited until her gaze returned to his, and began signing. Not perfectly, not gracefully, but sincerely.
"Hi, I'm Ethan."
"I'm happy to meet you." Lena froze. Her lips parted in shock. Her chest rose sharply as if she had forgotten to breathe. Because sign language wasn't something people learned casually. And certainly not on a prank date. Most people didn't even try to greet her properly. They spoke louder, slower, or turned away when she couldn't keep up. But this man, this tired, humble single dad, had just spoken her language. Her fingers trembled as she signed back, slowly, gently, as if afraid he'd stop at any moment. "You no sign?" Ethan nodded awkwardly. "A little. My daughter had a classmate who was deaf. I wanted her to feel included, so I learned a bit." Lena stared at him. Really stared. Like no one had ever surprised her more. Behind them, the laughter faded. Phones lowered. The pranksters didn't understand the language of Ethan's hands, but they understood the expression on Lena's face. The date, meant to humiliate, had bloomed into something else entirely. Something tender. Something powerful. Something that wasn't a joke anymore. She came expecting awkwardness. She found refuge. He came expecting humiliation. He found someone who finally saw him. And the dinner meant to hurt them became the safest place either had been in years. For Lena, silence was familiar, but loneliness wasn't. Not tonight. Not with the way Ethan watched her hands with genuine interest, leaning forward as if her very existence deserved space, attention, and warmth.
She wasn't used to that.
Most people saw her deafness first and her humanity second. But Ethan didn't stare at her hearing aids, didn't speak loudly or slowly, didn't act like she was fragile. He simply tried. His signs were clumsy. His fingers sometimes twisted the wrong way. But every movement carried intention, and Lena cherished it more than perfect fluency. Across the room, the group of men who orchestrated the prank began shifting uncomfortably. The smirks that once lit their faces were fading. The joke wasn't landing. It wasn't funny anymore. Instead, they were witnessing something almost unsettling. Kindness they couldn't understand. Connection they didn't expect. Humanity they had forgotten how to show. Lena turned her attention back to Ethan, tapping his hand gently to get it. Her touch was light, respectful, practiced from a lifetime of communicating through sensation. She signed slowly. "How long have you known Sign?" Ethan concentrated, mimicking her movements with a soft smile. 2 years. My daughter had a deaf classmate named Sarah. No one talked to her. She ate alone. I couldn't stand it. Lena's brows softened. So you learned for a child who wasn't even yours? He shrugged. Someone should have. Her throat tightened. Most people learn Sign only when they had to, if a family member lost hearing or a job required it. But Ethan had learned simply because it was the right thing to do. That kind of man wasn't common. That kind of heart wasn't ordinary. The waiter returned, speaking quickly without facing Lena. She caught nothing. Ethan immediately tapped the waiter's arm and gestured firmly for him to look at her. "Please face her," Ethan said, voice steady. "She needs to see your lips." The waiter flushed and apologized. Lena blinked in surprise. No one, not even her ex-boyfriend, had ever advocated for her that effortlessly. Ethan hadn't hesitated. He wasn't trying to impress her. He simply believed she deserved consideration. A warmth bloomed behind her ribs. When the waiter left, she signed, "Thank you." Ethan shook his head. "You shouldn't have to thank me for basic respect." Her heart fluttered in a way she hadn't felt in years. As dinner began, the world around them dimmed. Lena watched Ethan laugh quietly at his own mistakes, watched him use gestures when he didn't know the exact sign, watched him tap his chest before signing sorry each time he fumbled. His sincerity was disarming. She wrote a quick note on her pad and slid it to him when words became too complicated to sign. "You don't seem like someone who belongs to that group over there." Ethan read it, lips pressing together. "I don't," he admitted, signing as best he could. "But the job pays, and I have a daughter to raise." Lena nodded slowly, then wrote another question. "They wanted to make fun of you?" Ethan hesitated, then answered with his hands. "Maybe. But they didn't know you would be here. They didn't know this would feel nice." Her cheeks flushed. She met his gaze, a deep, tired gaze with so much softness hidden beneath the exhaustion, and she felt something shift. A gentle ache, a spark, a recognition. He wasn't embarrassed by her. He wasn't confused by her. He wasn't burdened by communication. He was present.
She signed.
"This is nice for me too." And the smile that tugged at Ethan's lips in that moment, small, hopeful, almost shy, made Lena's heart swell until she feared it might burst. Outside their bubble, the pranksters exchanged looks. Regret replaced amusement. One of them lowered his phone entirely, guilt creeping into his expression. This wasn't funny anymore. This was something real. Midway through the meal, Lena noticed Ethan fidgeting with his fork. She tapped the table gently. "Are you okay?" He sighed, cheeks warming. It's been years since I've done anything like this. I wasn't expecting you. Lena's breath caught. She signed slowly. Is that good or bad? He met her gaze, eyes steady, unafraid. Good. Really good. She looked away, smiling despite herself. The candlelight cast soft shadows across her face, framing her features in a glow so gentle Ethan couldn't look away. In that moment, Lena realized something profound. This man, who was supposed to be the butt of a joke, was the most attentive, respectful, genuine person she had ever shared a meal with. And she wondered, not for the first time, if sometimes fate used cruel beginnings to lead people toward gentle endings. But neither of them knew yet that the biggest surprise of the night hadn't even walked into the restaurant. That moment was coming, and it would change everything. Every story has a moment that reveals the truth. Tonight, the truth arrived wearing sparkly shoes and carrying a crumpled drawing. And it exposed more about Ethan than any words ever could. The restaurant door swung open with a gust of cold air, and the quiet hum of conversation fractured as a small figure darted inside. Lena noticed the shift before she noticed the child, movement rippling through the crowded room, a tiny whirlwind weaving past tables and startled waiters. But Ethan saw her instantly. Maya, he breathed. The little girl's eyes lit up the moment she spotted him. Daddy, she cried, barreling toward him with outstretched arms. Her backpack bounced against her shoulders, and her mismatched braids were coming undone, ribbons trailing behind her like flustered butterflies. Ethan stood so fast he nearly knocked over his chair. He caught her mid-run, lifting her effortlessly as she buried her face in his chest. Lena's breath caught. The pranksters in the booth exchanged confused looks. This wasn't part of their plan. Sweetheart, what are you doing here? Ethan asked, kneeling down to her level, worry clouding his face. Maya sniffed dramatically. The babysitter left early. She said she had a party. I came home, and she was gone. I walked to find you. You walked here alone? Ethan's voice cracked with fear and relief blending into one raw sound. He hugged her again, pressing her head to his shoulder. Oh, Maya, you could have gotten hurt. I didn't, she said proudly. I found you. Lena's heart warmed and ached at the same time. She watched them silently, her chest tightening with a tender ache she wasn't expecting. She'd known Ethan for barely an hour, yet she understood instantly. This little girl was his entire world. When Maya finally looked up, she noticed Lena for the first time. Her eyes widened with innocent awe. Hi, she said brightly. You're really pretty. Lena laughed silently behind her hand. Ethan flushed with embarrassment. He signed quickly, apologetically. I'm sorry, this wasn't supposed to happen. Lena shook her head. It's okay. She's adorable. Maya tugged on Ethan's sleeve. Daddy, why are your hands moving like that? Are you talking to her? Ethan turned toward his daughter, brushing a loose curl from her cheek. Yes, sweetheart. Lena is deaf. So Daddy is using sign language. You remember some, right? Maya's face lit up as she nodded enthusiastically. She lifted her small hands and attempted a sign. Not perfect, not clear, but earnest. Friend. Lena's eyes shimmered. Soft laughter escaped her, silent but bright, as she signed back.
Yes.
Friend. It was then that the entire dynamic of the night shifted. Ethan's coworkers watched, not laughing now, not recording. Guilt hung around them like smoke. They hadn't planned for a child to show up. They hadn't planned to witness kindness so pure it made their joke look crueler than they intended. Lena wiped a small tear forming in the corner of her eye before it could fall. She didn't want Ethan to think she was overwhelmed. But she was. Not by pity, not by discomfort, but by the unexpected warmth this tiny family radiated. Maya climbed into the empty chair next to her father, opening her backpack and extracting a crumpled piece of paper. She smoothed it out proudly. I made a picture today. Look, she announced. The drawing was of a man, clearly Ethan, with big hands, a tool belt, and a cape. A real superhero. She stabbed her finger at the picture. You fix things all day, Daddy. And you fix me when I cry. So I made you Captain Fix-It. Lena pressed a hand over her heart. Ethan was speechless. And for a man who had spent years hiding behind quiet humility, he wasn't used to someone witnessing these soft, vulnerable moments. Especially not on a date. Especially not with someone who made his heart feel calm. Maya leaned toward Lena. Do you like superheroes? Lena nodded, signing slowly so the little girl could follow.
Yes.
Especially this one. She pointed at the figure in the drawing. Maya giggled. Me too. Ethan's face turned a deep shade of red. Okay, he murmured, waving his hands playfully as if to fan away his embarrassment. But the smile tugging at his lips was impossible to hide. Then Maya whispered loudly, so loudly the pranksters could hear. Daddy never dates nice girls. I hope you stay. Ethan choked. Lena froze. Their eyes met, wide and startled, but something warm flickered between them, hope tangled with surprise. The men in the booth grew still. Shame settled heavily, like dust. They hadn't just disrupted Ethan's night. They had stumbled into a moment that was clearly precious, real, and painfully sincere. Maya, oblivious to all adult emotions, leaned closer to Lena and said conspiratorially, You can sit by us always. Daddy's lonely, but he pretends he's not. Okay. Ethan sputtered. Time for dessert. Lena laughed silently, covering her mouth again. And in that moment, laughing with a single dad and his honest, brilliant little daughter, Lena realized something. This wasn't just a date gone wrong. This wasn't a prank anymore. This was the beginning of something she didn't have a name for yet. But she felt it. And Ethan felt it. And even the pranksters felt it. The night had changed. And none of them could pretend otherwise. Some moments reveal who a person truly is. Some nights test the strength of a heart. And sometimes the people who cause the hurt are forced to witness the healing. For a while, the restaurant seemed to glow around them, as if the three of them, Ethan, Lena, and little Maya, existed inside their own warm, fragile bubble. But bubbles don't last. And this one was about to stretch painfully thin. It began when Maya needed to use the restroom. I'll be right back, she chirped, skipping away with a carefree confidence only children carried naturally. Ethan watched her go, shoulders softening with both worry and pride. When he turned back to the table, he found Lena studying him. Not shyly, not awkwardly, but with a quiet curiosity. She signed slowly. You're a good father. Ethan exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. I try, he signed back. It's just us. So I have to be everything. Lena's gaze softened even further. You are. He looked away, cheeks warming, but a smile tugged at his lips. For a moment, it felt safe. Easy. Natural. But safety never lasted long in the presence of insecurity, and his co-workers were drowning in theirs. Ray, the ringleader of the prank, stood abruptly from the booth and approached their table. The moment his shadow fell across them, Ethan straightened, instinctively protective. Lena felt tension ripple through him like a pulled string. Ray cleared his throat. Ethan, man, look, tonight was just... Ethan didn't let him finish. Don't, he said quietly. Lena watched his lips, understanding instantly. The cold firmness in his voice startled her. Not because it was harsh, but because he had spent the entire night being gentle. Ray shifted awkwardly. We didn't think it'd actually, you two would. Lena stiffened. Ethan noticed. He signed to her quickly. It's not about you. You didn't do anything wrong. Then he looked at Ray with a gaze Lena had never seen from him. Steady, unwavering, no longer apologizing for taking up space. What exactly did you think would happen? Ethan asked. Ray swallowed. It was supposed to be funny. A blind date with. He hesitated, eyes flicking toward Lena. And that was enough. Ethan stepped in front of her chair, not aggressively, but protectively, blocking Ray's line of sight. You don't get to finish that sentence, Ethan said. Lena's breath trembled. No one had ever stood between her and cruelty with such quiet conviction. Ray lifted both hands. Look, man, we didn't mean... That's the problem. Ethan interrupted. You never think about what your jokes mean. Not for me. Not for her. Lena touched Ethan's hand lightly. It's okay, she signed. But Ethan shook his head, signing back.
No.
It's not. Ray looked embarrassed now, truly embarrassed, not performatively. Ethan, we messed up. I'm sorry. Ethan stared at him for a moment, then said simply, Don't apologize to me. Ray froze. He looked at Lena. She looked at him. And for the first time all night, Ray's expression softened, not with pity, but with understanding. He lowered his eyes and said quietly, I'm sorry. Lena nodded. It was enough. Ray retreated, shoulders slumped, as if the weight of his own thoughtlessness had finally settled. The room seemed to breathe again. Ethan returned to his seat, still tense, still protective. Lena reached out and gently touched his wrist, an intimate gesture in her world, meant to soothe. He looked at her, eyes warm but conflicted. She signed slowly, deliberately. Thank you for defending me. Ethan signed back. You shouldn't need defending. Her heart fluttered, painfully. But you still did. He smiled faintly, something tender breaking through his worry. Before either of them could say more, Maya returned, skipping with the pure joy of someone who had no idea tension had existed at all. She climbed into her seat, took one look at Ethan's stiff posture, and tilted her head.
Daddy?
Are you mad? Ethan forced a smile. Not anymore. Maya leaned closer, whispering loudly. Did someone mean to you? Because I can be meaner. Lena laughed silently, shaking her head. Ethan ruffled his daughter's hair. Everything's okay, sweetheart, he said softly. And as the tension drained, something else filled its space, something unexpected, delicate, and powerful. Ethan looked at Lena. Lena looked at Ethan. And neither looked away. It was the kind of eye contact that asked a question neither dared put into words. The kind that hinted at possibilities both terrifying and beautiful. The kind that only happened when two hearts, bruised, cautious, but hopeful, recognized something familiar in each other. But the night wasn't over. Not yet. And the moment waiting just outside the restaurant doors would test them in a way neither expected. This story was changing shape. And fate wasn't done weaving its threads. When the truth finally came out, no one at the table could hide behind their laughter anymore. Sometimes life punishes cruelty in silence, but rewards kindness loud enough for the world to hear. They wanted to embarrass him, but instead, they exposed their own hearts to shame. Ethan didn't know he had an audience. He didn't know that the same group of friends who had set up this blind date as a twisted joke had been sitting at a table behind them, snickering, whispering, recording clips, waiting for the moment the deaf girl would misunderstand something or he would panic and embarrass himself.
He didn't know any of that.
But Elena knew. She had seen the phones. She had seen the pointing fingers. She had seen the smirks thrown her way the moment she walked in. She had been on the receiving end of that kind of cruelty her entire life. The kind that hides behind just teasing, the kind that masks insecurity with humiliation. So when Ethan walked in, shoulders tense, hair barely combed, shirt ironed with the desperation of a man who wanted to look presentable even though he clearly didn't have the time, she instantly recognized him as someone who wasn't part of their joke. Someone who didn't belong to their cruelty. And now, as they left the cafe together, the group finally realized that the joke had backfired.
Badly.
Because Elena stopped walking. Ethan turned to her, signing gently. Everything okay? She nodded once, then shook her head. Her breath trembled. She wasn't okay. Not entirely. Not anymore. Since the date began, she had felt something foreign, something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. It terrified her. She lifted her hands slowly. There's something I need to tell you, she signed. Ethan waited, patient as always, eyes warm, body relaxed the way only a safe person could be. And then, before she could speak, footsteps approached. The group. The ones who had sent Ethan to meet her. The ones who thought the night would end in mockery. Ethan blinked, still unaware. Hey guys, he said lightly, genuinely surprised. I didn't know you all were here. One of them snorted. Oh, we were here, bro. Another whispered too loudly, "Dude, he doesn't even know." A third muttered, "This is awkward." Elena saw Ethan's confusion turning to unease. She stepped closer to him. Not behind him, not away from him, but beside him. "What's going on?" he asked, glancing between them. One of the girls, the one with heavy eyeliner and heavier guilt, shifted on her feet. "Look, Ethan, it wasn't supposed to go this far." "What wasn't supposed to go this far?" he repeated, voice tightening. No one answered. Elena swallowed. She stepped forward, touching his arm gently. And then she signed, slower this time, trembling slightly so he would understand every word. "They set us up as a joke."
Not you.
"Me." Ethan froze. The world quieted. Wind brushed past them, cold and sharp, but his eyes didn't move from hers. "A joke," he whispered. "You?" Elena nodded once, then pointed toward the group behind them. The group that was suddenly dead silent. Ethan turned, but the look in his eyes was nothing like the embarrassed, insecure man they expected to see. He wasn't angry. He wasn't shouting. He wasn't demanding an explanation. He was disappointed. Bone-deep disappointed. "I thought you were my friends," he said quietly. "I trusted you." One shifted. "Ethan, man, it was just a joke." Ethan finished. "Using someone's disability for entertainment? Making fun of someone meeting me? Making fun of me meeting her?" Silence. Elena watched him, heart pounding, because the truth was undeniable now. He wasn't defending her because he felt obligated. He wasn't defending her out of guilt. He wasn't defending her because he was angry. He defended her because he cared. A strange, indescribable warmth flooded her chest. Ethan stepped in front of her, his stance protective, not possessive. "Do any of you know sign language?" he asked. No one answered. "Do any of you know anything about her?" No one answered. He shook his head slowly. "She's brilliant.
She's funny. She's kind.
And she can communicate more clearly with her hands than most of us can with our mouths." His voice cracked slightly, not from weakness, but from truth. "And you tried to use her to embarrass me? Or embarrass her? Or both?" He breathed out slowly. "That's not funny. That's cruelty dressed like entertainment." The group stood still, every fake laugh dying on their lips. The girl with eyeliner spoke first, her voice tiny. We didn't think." "You did," Ethan said. "You just didn't care." And with those few words they fell apart, not because he yelled, but because he revealed everything they feared about themselves. Ethan then turned back to Elena. And he signed. Not perfect. Not smooth. But careful. "I'm sorry they did that. I'm glad I met you." Her breath trembled. Then she reached for his hand. Not because she needed support, but because he deserved to know she chose him too. Behind them, someone sniffled. Someone wiped their eyes. Someone whispered, "We really messed up." But none of it mattered anymore. Not the joke. Not the cruelty. Not the humiliation. What mattered was that the single dad they thought would be the punchline had become the lesson they would never forget. And the deaf girl they thought would be easy to mock had become the woman who showed them what true strength looks like. Together, hand in hand, Ethan and Elena walked out of the cafe, leaving behind tears, but none of their own.